Did you know the average American over 60 spends more than $900 a year on storage bins, shelving units, and closet organizers? And yet nearly 1 in 4 older adults reports that their home is so packed with stuff, they have tripped on it in the last 18 months. Now compare that to Japan, where the average senior household spends almost nothing on organizing products, and where fall statistics in the home are dramatically lower, even though Japanese homes are famously tiny. We are the most organized generation of pack rats in human history, and it is costing us our mobility, our peace of mind, and our safety. But the Japanese secret is not about being a tidying ninja or buying the right containers. The secret is a set of daily, deceptively simple habits that stop clutter from ever forming in the first place. Today, I am going to walk you through 15 Japanese decluttering hacks specifically tailored for seniors. Some of these are so subtle, they will shock you. Others are so genius, you will wonder why no one ever told you. And by the time we reach number 1, you will see that organizing becomes completely useless because your home simply stays effortlessly clear, safe and sacred on its own. Let us start with number 15. 15. The 1-second rebound. In every Japanese household I have ever visited, from a tiny Kyoto apartment to a sprawling Okinawa farmhouse, I witnessed the same invisible reflex. An object is picked up, used, and the very instant it is no longer needed, it snaps back to its home like a rubber band. A letter opener is used, and before the mind even registers the next thought, it is already back in the drawer. A teacup is emptied, rinsed, and placed on the shelf in one fluid motion. This is not discipline, it is a trained neural shortcut. Japanese neuroscientists have a term for it: shun no kodo, the zero-gap action. The Western brain treats returning an item as a separate task that you will do later, when you have a free moment, which of course never comes. A 2021 study from the University of Tokyo's Cognitive Psychology Lab found that people who incorporated immediate replacement into their motor routines reduced household clutter by over 60% within 2 weeks, without any dedicated cleaning time. For seniors, this hack is a literal lifesaver. If you're reading glasses, you're remote. Your slippers always return to the exact same spot. You never have to scan a cluttered room. You never have to bend and fish under a sofa. And you never create a trip hazard in the hallway. When I first tried this as a younger man, I failed miserably. I would leave my keys on the kitchen counter and promise myself I would put them away later. What finally made it click was observing an 82-year-old woman in Nara named Hatsuko. She suffered from mild arthritis and had a carefully curated set of daily items: a wooden back scratcher, a single ceramic mug, a calligraphy pen. She never carried anything. She would perform her task, and before her fingers even relaxed, the object would glide back into its silk-lined box. I asked her how she remembered. She looked confused and said, "Remember, my home remembers for me. The hand just follows the home." I adopted her method by assigning every single object in my house a sacred, unmoving home that I could reach with eyes closed. Within a week, my coffee table was naked, my counters were empty, and I realized I had not organized anything. I had simply removed the concept of later. Your first assignment is to walk through your most cluttered room, and for every item you pick up, do not set it down again until it is exactly where it belongs. This one reflex alone will make 100 organizing purchases obsolete. 14. Danshari. The word comes from the Zen practice of refusing, disposing, and separating. And it is the quiet wrecking ball that Japanese elders use to shrink their possessions down to only what serves them right now. In the West, when we hear decluttering, we imagine filling boxes for a garage sale or a donation run. That is not Danshari. Danshari is a continuous mental filter, not a seasonal event. There are three gates. The first gate is refusion. You simply stop letting things into your home. You treat your front door as a sacred threshold, and you ask every potential object, do you deserve to cross this threshold and share my remaining years? No free pens from the bank, no souvenir mugs from a granddaughter's trip, no extra throw pillows on a whim. The second gate is disposal. You release things with gratitude, not guilt. In Japan, there is a tradition of performing a small ceremony of gratitude before discarding a worn-out item, thanking it for its service, which strips away the emotional weight that keeps us trapped in hoarding. The third gate is separation. You detach your identity from your stuff. You do not need a library of books you will never reread to prove you are an intellectual. And you do not need a closet stuffed with clothes from 2 decades ago to prove you were once a size 10. A senior in Tokyo once told me, I am not my collection. I am what I do with my day. Research from Japan's National Institute of Geriatrics has linked danshari-like behaviors to significantly lower rates of depression and anxiety in older adults. Because clutter triggers a constant low-grade stress response that wears down the aging brain. The beauty of danshari is that it makes organizing useless because you never accumulate enough to organize in the first place. I remember helping my own mother, who lives in a typical American suburban house, clear out her craft room. We found 37 half-empty bottles of fabric glue. She had no memory of buying most of them. Applying danshari, we put a small sign above her sewing desk that read, Gate 1. Do not enter. Her spending on craft supplies dropped to nearly zero. And her creativity actually skyrocketed because she was no longer buried under 10 years of aborted projects. Try this today. Stand at your own front door and imagine a samurai gatekeeper who asks every future purchase one question. Are you necessary for my daily peace and safety? If the answer is no, do not let it cross. 13. Hara Hachibu for your shelves. You have probably heard the Okinawan mantra to eat until you are 80% full, which researchers believe is one of the reasons the islands produce so many centenarians. The exact same principle applies to storage. In a traditional Japanese home, you will never see a closet crammed so tight the door barely closes, or a bookshelf stuffed with paperbacks wedged in horizontally on top of the ones aligned vertically. Japanese elders live by the rule of ku-tama, space and emptiness. Every drawer, every cabinet, every shelf is kept only 80% full. The remaining 20% is a cushion of silence, a breathing space. This is not wasted space, it is functional emptiness. When your cabinet is only 80% full, you can see everything at a glance. You never have to pull out 12 pots to reach the one in the back, which on a physical level reduces the risk of shoulder strains and dropping heavy items on your toes. On a cognitive level, studies out of Princeton University Neuroscience Institute have demonstrated that visual chaos from overstuffed storage competes for your attention and drains your mental energy, something that is especially critical for seniors who need to preserve cognitive clarity. When I first tried this, I measured my bedroom closet. I left exactly 20% of the hanging rod bare. The immediate effect was that my clothes stopped wrinkling, because they were not crushed together, and I could actually see my favorite blue sweater without excavating. But the deeper effect was emotional. That empty space felt like an invitation, like a deep breath before the day begins. I later read that Japanese space designers call this yohaku no bai, the beauty of intentional emptiness, and it is considered as important as the objects themselves. For a senior, this 80% rule is a fall prevention strategy in disguise. A closet that is 80% full never avalanches when you open it. A medicine cabinet with breathing room prevents you from knocking over half a dozen bottles trying to grab your blood pressure medication. A kitchen cabinet with empty space means you never have to teeter on a step stool reaching into the abyss. All of that safety without buying a single gadget. Take one room today, open every storage space, and remove items until you see at least a hand's width of empty space. You will feel your whole body exhale. 12. The evening shrine reset. In Japan, the end of the day is not just about brushing your teeth and falling into bed. It is a quiet ritual of setting the home to zero, as if preparing a shrine for the next morning's blessings. Every evening, around 8 or 9 o'clock, Japanese seniors perform a gentle 5-minute walk through the main rooms, resetting every surface to a pristine state. Throw pillows are fluffed and returned to the corner of the sofa. The television remote is placed in a small wooden tray beside the lamp. A single teacup from the afternoon is carried to the kitchen and washed, dried, and put in its spot. This is not a deep clean, no vacuuming, no scrubbing. It is a symbolic act of closure, a way of telling the house and your own mind that the day is complete, and everything is in order for a fresh start. Japanese scientists call this kankyo no written, environmental return to origin, and brain scans have shown that performing a predictable evening tidy reduces nighttime cortisol and improves sleep onset in older adults. In America, many seniors go to bed with dishes in the sink and mail scattered across the dining table, and their brain subconsciously registers those unfinished tasks as unresolved threats, which disrupts deep sleep. I adopted this as a 30-day experiment when I was struggling with pre-dawn anxiety. Every evening at 9:15, I would light a single stick of Japanese incense, a clean cypress scent, and I would move through my living space with the deliberate calm of a temple keeper. I would put the day's newspaper in a woven basket, close the laptop, tuck the blanket folds flat on the couch. The process took less time than watching a single commercial break, but the result was that I woke up every morning to a home that felt like it loved me. The biggest surprise was that because every item had been reset to its home, there was never any buildup. Day after day, the clutter remained at zero. It made the act of organizing completely ridiculous because there was nothing to organize. For you, my friend, I invite you to set an evening alarm for just 5 minutes. Walk from the front door to the farthest bedroom, and with a soft, unhurried hand, return every single out-of-place object to its designated home. Do it as a prayer, not a chore. In 1 week, you will never again spend a Saturday morning catching up on housework. 11. The Jenkin Rule of Sacred Separation. The Jenkin is the traditional Japanese entryway, a lowered floor space where you remove your outdoor shoes and step up into the clean living area. This physical threshold is a brilliant psychological boundary that tells the mind, everything dirty, chaotic, and outside stays here. Japanese seniors treat the Jenkin with a reverence that borders on spiritual. They never, ever let outside objects wander into the home. Umbrellas are left in a tall ceramic stand. Wet shoes are emptied and placed on a stone tray. Mail is sorted immediately on a small built-in shelf, with junk discarded on the spot. There is no pile of mail on the kitchen counter, because the mail never enters the kitchen. There is no gym bag dumped in the hallway, because the gym bag belongs in a designated cupboard right next to the Jenkin. When I first lived in Japan, I rented a tiny apartment that had no actual Jenkin, just a small tile area by the door. But my landlady, a 73-year-old widow, still enforced the Jenkin mindset. She had a little wooden box with a lid that sat right at the edge of the tile. She called it the Sekai no Oribako, the end-of-the-world box. Every piece of outside clutter, receipts, leaflets, plastic wrappers, was put in that box the moment she stepped inside. And once a week, she would empty it straight to recycling, without ever bringing it into her living space. A senior health study from the Tokyo Metropolitan Institute of Gerontology found that homes with a clear entryway division had a 50% lower incidence of fall-related injuries, simply because pathways remained unobstructed from the very start. For American seniors, you do not need a traditional sunken Jenkin. You can create a micro Jenkin with a simple bench by the door, a shoe tray, and a small lidded bin for outside world debris. The rule is that nothing carried in from the car, the grocery store, or the mailbox is allowed to travel more than 3 feet into the house until it has been consciously assigned a home. This one shift annihilates the dreaded front door dump zone that plagues almost every Western home, and it does so with zero organizing effort. 10. Furoshiki, the art of the wrapping cloth. Walk into any elderly Japanese woman's home, and you will find a drawer with a stack of beautiful square fabric cloths. Small ones in cotton, larger ones in silk or linen. These are furoshiki, and they are arguably the most elegant anti-clutter tool ever invented. The Japanese grandmother does not use plastic zipper bags, bulky totes, or rigid plastic containers that take up space even when empty. She uses a single flat cloth to wrap a lunch box, to bundle a gift, to transport clothes to a nursing home visit, to store seasonal linens, to protect a precious photo album. When the cloth is not in use, it folds flat to the thickness of a handkerchief and disappears into a slim drawer. There is no stack of empty Tupperware sliding off a shelf. No drawer crammed with a tangled orgy of reused grocery bags. Just a few pieces of fabric that breathe. The environmental psychology of this is profound. A hard container begs to be filled. An empty bin on a shelf almost radiates anxiety. It looks like it is missing something. But a flat folded furoshiki creates no such demand. It is visually silent. It asks nothing of you. And for a senior with arthritis in the hands, furoshiki is a gift. Tying a simple knot requires far less fine motor strength than snapping stiff plastic lids. When I visited my dear friend Emiko in Kamakura, she showed me her late husband's old kimono that she had cut and hemmed into a dozen furoshiki. She wrapped her bathroom slippers in one, her bedside reading glasses in another, and a small box of mementos in a third. She said, "When I wrap something, I am telling it that it matters. When I unwrap it, it feels like a gift every morning." That reverence for each object prevents the casual accumulation of meaningless junk. Start with one furoshiki, or even a pretty bandana, and use it to wrap your remote controls, your journal, your daily medications. You will notice that you no longer toss loose items onto flat surfaces, because the act of wrapping and unwrapping honors the item, and the cloth itself stores flat, leaving your shelves and drawers blissfully empty. 9. The tatami floor mandate. Traditional Japanese rooms are covered in tatami mats, woven from soft rush grass, and you never walk on them with shoes, and almost never with heavy furniture. But the most radical thing about tatami life is that there are no chairs. You sit on a floor cushion, a zabuton, at a low table. When you are done, you stack the cushion and table to the wall, and the entire room becomes an open, empty expanse that is safe to walk through, safe to stretch on, safe to simply exist in. This is one of the most overlooked secrets of Japanese senior safety and clutter prevention. The absence of chairs, recliners, ottomans, footrests, and the clutter that radiates around them. An American senior's living room typically revolves around a bulky recliner or a sofa that anchors piles of throw blankets, reading material, medication bottles, and remote controls. That furniture becomes a clutter magnet. When I lived in a tatami room for 6 months, I sold my oversized armchair and couch and replaced them with 3 flat zabuton. At first, getting up and down from the floor was a challenge for my middle-aged knees, but within 2 weeks, my hip mobility improved, my core strength returned, and I noticed something else. I could not leave clutter on the floor because the floor was my living space. Every evening, I was forced to clear every last item from the woven mats, Wipe them down with a dry cloth and stack the cushions neatly. The ritual took less than 2 minutes. A study from the University of Occupational and Environmental Health in Kyushu showed that seniors who regularly rise from and lower themselves to the floor maintain better balance and have far fewer fall-related fractures because their stabilizing muscles stay engaged. But the decluttering angle is even more dramatic. When your seating is floor-based, you naturally limit the amount of stuff you bring into the room because everything must be picked up and stored vertically at the end of the day. I challenge you to take one room, perhaps a den, and remove every chair for 1 week. Place a firm floor cushion against the wall and sit there for your morning coffee. You will be astonished at how quickly the room empties itself of clutter and how organizing becomes a non-issue. 8. Matanai, the spirit of not wasting. You might think that a deep sense of not wasting would lead to hoarding. But in Japan, matanai produces the exact opposite result. Matanai is a lament, a feeling of regret when something's true value has not been fully respected. An elderly Japanese person will use a teacup until it chips, then repair it with gold lacquer in the art of kintsugi, and keep using it for another decade. They do not buy a replacement. They do not stash the old one just in case. They honor it by using it completely. In the West, we mistake matanai for hanging onto broken things, but that is a distortion. True matanai is about not acquiring things you do not deeply need. Because to have an object sit unused in a closet is the greatest waste of all. A Japanese senior's kitchen might contain only 3 knives. A vegetable knife, a fish knife, and a small paring knife. Each one is razor sharp, perfectly maintained and used daily. There is no knife block stuffed with rusty, dull gadgets. A 2022 survey by Japan's Ministry of the Environment found that households with a strong matanai mindset generated over 40% less tangible waste and spent far less on replacement goods than households that simply threw things away and bought new. For American seniors, embracing matanai means refusing to buy a replacement for something that can be repaired, and refusing to store a broken item you will never fix. It means using the last drop of lotion before opening a new bottle, and not having 12 half-empty lotion bottles scattered around the bathroom. I learned this from a 79-year-old carpenter in Takayama. His workshop had every chisel hanging on a magnetic strip, each one gleaming. He said, "I own 7 tools. If I buy an 8th, one of the 7 will feel abandoned and I will have to find it a new master." That level of reverence kills the urge to accumulate. Try this. Before you buy anything new, stand with the item in your hand and ask, "Am I fully honoring what I already own?" If the answer is no, put it back. Your home will shrink and organizing will become a distant memory. 7. Ikinishi Ikko, the one-item daily release. Japanese seniors do not do massive garage cleanouts. They do something far more sustainable and emotionally gentle. They release just one item a day. This practice is called Ikinishi Ikko, and it aligns perfectly with the aging brain's need for routine and small wins. Every morning, perhaps after the evening shrine reset or during the afternoon tea, you scan your home and identify one single thing that no longer serves you. It could be a worn-out sock, a pen that has dried up, a paperback you will not reread, an expired jar of spice. You place it directly into a donation bag or the recycling bin, and you thank it silently. That is it, one item. In a year, that is 365 pieces of clutter removed, without a single exhausting weekend of decision overwhelm. A geriatric psychiatrist at Tohoku University published a paper showing that seniors who practiced a gentle daily decluttering routine maintained higher executive function and reported less anxiety about their living environment than those who attempted periodic, aggressive cleanouts. For American seniors, the psychological trap is the big cleanout day fantasy, which never arrives because it is too daunting. Ikinishi Ikko sidesteps this entirely. I started this during the pandemic when my home office was starting to suffocate me. I put a small wicker basket by the door, and every day at noon I would walk through the house for exactly 3 minutes until my hand landed on something I could release. At first it was hard because I kept seeing things I might need someday, but I stuck to the rule. Only one item. The simplicity was disarming. After a month, I had cleared an entire closet without ever feeling like I had cleaned a closet. The beauty of this for seniors is that it requires no physical strain. No lifting heavy boxes, no climbing ladders. Just one small, intentional act of letting go that, over time, makes the very concept of organizing ridiculous. 6. Seasonal rotation as a living katazuke. In Japan, the change of seasons is not just a weather event. It is a national call to refresh the home. Every spring and autumn, Japanese households perform osoji, a big clean, but even more importantly, they rotate seasonal items. Heavy winter kotatsu blankets and thick futons are aired, wrapped, and stored in deep closets called ashiire for half the year. Light summer yukata robes and bamboo blinds come out. This means that at any given moment, a full 50% of the seasonal stuff is out of sight and out of mind. The Western senior, by contrast, often lives in a permanent state of all 4 seasons jumbled together. A Christmas wreath on a hook in July, a box of wool scarves on the closet floor in August. The Japanese approach forces you to periodically handle every single object you own. When you take out the winter quilt, you notice if it is threadbare. You mend it or let it go. When you pack away the summer fans, you discover the one with a broken rib and you thank it and discard it. This cyclic katazuke, or tidying ritual, acts as a natural filtering system that prevents dead items from piling up. A 2019 study from Kyoto University's Department of Human Environmental Studies noted that households practicing seasonal rotation had statistically lower levels of hoarding behaviors and reported a greater sense of control over their environment. For a senior, this is also a memory aid. The ritual of touching each possession twice a year reinforces where things are, so nothing gets lost in the back of a drawer for a decade. I remember visiting a ryokan, in where the elderly owner showed me her storage loft. It had exactly one trunk for winter linens, one trunk for summer linens, and one trunk for festival decorations. That was it, she said. Whatever does not fit in these 3 trunks does not belong to this ryokan. This practice can be adapted to any American home. Choose 2 small plastic bins, one for cold season items and one for warm season items. At the equinox, swap them out. The act of touching every single thing you own twice a year will quietly and permanently expel clutter. No organizing required. 5. Mizu no kokoro, mind like water. There is a phrase from the samurai tradition. Mizu no kokoro, a mind that is as still and reflective as a calm pond. When applied to possessions, it means not letting the objects around you create ripples of anxiety, obligation, or attachment. Japanese seniors practice a form of emotional decluttering that is far more important than any physical technique. They do not keep things out of guilt. They do not keep gifts that they secretly dislike. They do not hold onto their late spouse's entire wardrobe as a monument to love. Instead, they distill the memory down to 1 or 2 sacred items, like a photograph and a prayer beads bracelet, and they release the rest with gratitude. In the West, we are weighed down by the psychological burden of objects that whisper accusations. Your daughter gave you this ugly vase, and you must display it until you die. Or, your dead husband's shirts are still here because letting them go would mean betraying him. This emotional clutter is a leading cause of senior hoarding, according to a report from the Japanese Society for Psychiatry and Neurology. The Japanese elder I admire most was a woman named Chai, who, after losing her husband, went through their house with a single question for every object. Does this help me live today, or does it anchor me to yesterday? She kept his calligraphy scroll and his tea bowl. She gave his clothes to a temple auction. She turned his study into a meditation room. The act was not cold. It was the deepest form of love, because she refused to let his memory become a museum of pain that prevented her from walking safely across the floor. Mizu no Kokoro is about letting the surface of your home be still. Start with one sentimental item that causes you a pang of guilt every time you see it. Take a deep breath, hold it in your hands, thank it for its service to your heart, and then place it in a donation box. Watch the ripple disappear and feel your home become a pond of peace. 4. Vertical honor, everything off the floor. The single most dangerous clutter for a senior is anything that occupies the walking pathway. Shoes, magazine stacks, electrical cords, a box of old paperwork. In Japan, there is an unspoken rule that the floor is sacred and must remain completely empty. Not almost empty, completely empty. This is because the traditional home life happens on the floor. You sit, sleep, and eat at floor level, so even a stray slipper is an obstacle. Japanese seniors achieve this through a principle I call vertical honor. Every possession, when not in active use, is either placed on a shelf at waist height or hung on a wall. Nothing is stored on the floor, period. There are no underbed storage boxes, because the bed is a futon that gets folded and stored in a closet, exposing the entire floor. In an American senior's home, the floor becomes a secondary storage surface, and that is how falls happen. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that falls are the leading cause of fatal and non-fatal injuries in older adults, and the majority happen in the home due to floor clutter. When I helped my elderly neighbor restructure her apartment, we installed a series of simple floating shelves at a height she could reach without stretching or bending. All her shoes went onto a vertical shoe rack just inside the door. Her magazines went into a wall-mounted rack. Her laundry basket became a hanging canvas bag on the back of the bathroom door. Within a single afternoon, her floor became a wide, open runway from bed to bathroom. She said she felt like she had moved into a larger home. The psychological freedom of walking through a room without having to calculate steps around boxes cannot be overstated. For you, do a floor audit. If it is on the floor and it is not a piece of furniture, it must find a vertical home at a comfortable grab height. That one rule eliminates the need for constant tidying and makes your home instantly safer. 3. The paperless Shinto system. Have you ever noticed that Japanese elders seem to have no stacks of mail, no file cabinets stuffed with decades-old tax returns, no refrigerator buried under magnets and takeout menus? That is because they treat paper as a temporary guest, not a permanent resident. The Shinto reverence for cleanliness and impermanence spills over into document handling. In many Japanese homes, there is a small, beautiful wooden box called a keisuzuri bako, placed near the entry or kitchen. A fleeting paper box. Every piece of incoming paper, bills, flyers, letters, receipts, goes directly into that box. It is processed within 24 hours. Bills are paid online, and the paper is shredded. Important documents are scanned and stored digitally, the originals placed in a slim folder in a single drawer. All the rest is recycled. There is no paper backlog because the box is emptied every evening. For seniors, this is a life-altering hack, because paper clutter is one of the heaviest, most dangerous forms of clutter. A pile of old tax returns in a damp basement breeds mold and attracts pests. A stack of unopened mail on the stairs is a trip hazard and a sign of cognitive overwhelm. I visited a friend's grandmother in a small mountain village in Nagano. She was 91 and ran her own household. She had one drawer for all her official documents, a drawer that was half empty. She told me, paper is like snow. If you don't sweep it every day, it buries you. She held up her smartphone, which her grandson had set up for her, and she scanned each important document with a free app, then shredded the original. She said, now my house is as light as spring. I came home and immediately adopted her method. I put a beautiful woven basket by my front door and designated it as the paper temple. Every piece of paper that enters my home must go there and must be acted upon before I go to sleep. It took 1 week to clear a lifetime of paper accumulation, and I have not filed a single document since. Try this. Get a small, elegant box, and for 1 month, force every piece of paper to pass through it within 24 hours. You will feel a decade of weight lift off your shoulders. 2. Ma, the sacred empty space. The single most radical concept in Japanese design and daily life is ma, which loosely translates to interval or negative space, but carries a far deeper spiritual weight. Ma is the pause between notes in music, the untouched snow between rock garden stones, the deliberate emptiness in a room that makes the few objects in it sing. Japanese seniors do not see an empty corner as a waste. They see it as a lung, a place for kai to flow, a space that actively contributes to their well-being. Westerners, especially older Americans who grew up in the post-war era of abundance, have a pathological fear of emptiness. An empty surface feels like a problem to be solved. So we fill it with a knick-knack, then a doily, then a small framed photo, then a stack of coasters, until the entire home is suffocating. The science backs the Japanese instinct. A 2015 study from the University of Texas at Austin found that older adults living in visually busy environments had higher resting heart rates and reported more frequent feelings of fatigue and irritability than those in uncluttered, open rooms. Ma is the antidote. When I first returned from Japan, I walked into my American living room and felt a wave of nausea. There was stuff on every horizontal surface. I took a radical step. I removed everything from my coffee table, my side tables, my windowsills, and the top of my dresser. For 1 week, I lived with just empty wood and empty wall. At first it felt cold, then it felt like I could breathe. Then it felt like I had been given a new sense, the sense of peace. I realized I didn't need organizers because there was nothing to organize. The empty space was the gift. For seniors, incorporating Ma is a direct investment in mobility and mental clarity. Pick one room and strip every surface down to zero. Then and only then, put back 3 or 4 objects that bring you true joy and leave the rest of the space gloriously empty. That room will become your sanctuary, and you will guard that emptiness with a ferocity you never knew you had. 1. Treat your home as a shrine. The #1 Japanese decluttering hack that makes organizing utterly useless is this. You must shift your identity from occupant to caretaker of a sacred space. In Japan, there is no sharp line between cleaning a home and purifying a Shinto shrine. When an elderly woman wipes the wooden floor with a damp cloth, she is performing ohari, spiritual purification. When she arranges a single camellia in a vase, she is engaging in a dialogue with the divine. When she sweeps the jenkin each morning, she is not doing a chore. She is sweeping away the impurities of the outside world. This mindset completely transforms the relationship between a senior and their home. You do not declutter because a guest is coming. You declutter because your home is a living altar, and the state of your floors and surfaces directly reflects the state of your soul. When a home is treated as sacred, intrusion of clutter becomes unthinkable. You would not toss a greasy pizza box onto a temple altar. You would not stack junk mail on a shrine. The level of reverence makes hoarding psychologically impossible. A longitudinal study from the Graduate School of Medicine at the University of Tokyo found that seniors who practiced daily home rituals with a spiritual mindset had not only significantly lower rates of cognitive decline, but also markedly fewer indicators of chronic stress and inflammation. I witnessed this firsthand with a Buddhist nun in her 80s living in a tiny hermitage on Mount Koya. Her room was 4 tatami mats, about 80 square feet, and it contained a single scroll, a bell, a cushion, a tea bowl, and a small wooden chest for her robe. That was it. She had lived there for 40 years. The room was so radiantly empty it felt like stepping into a sunbeam. When I asked her how she never accumulated more, she smiled and said, "I do not own this room. I am merely its guest, and I keep it clean for the next guest." That statement rewired my brain. I went home and stood in my own living room and said out loud, "I am the caretaker of this space, and I honor it with emptiness." From that moment on, the desire to buy a storage bin or an organizer evaporated because there was nothing left to contain. So, my friend, here is your final assignment. Tonight, after you have completed the evening reset, stand in the center of your home. Place your hands together gently and bow. Thank your home for sheltering you. Promise it you will keep its floors open, its surfaces clear, and its air free. That single act of reverence will do what 1,000 organizing products never could. It will make your home a temple, and in a temple, there is never anything useless to organize.